There are certain things the unconditioned human mind should never, ever, ever encounter. The dark pages with the comprehensible horrors that should remain forever sealed. Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, they have put their mark on millions of people all over the world. Um, myself was introduced to fantasy fiction by J.R. Tolkien, but my experience with reading Tolkien was dramatic to say the least. So it's story time. We'll go years and years and years ago, back in some godforsaken times like 1993 or 1994. I know it's YouTube and I'm a boomer, or quite some time, maybe ancient for many of you, but yes, I was alive in the 90s and I was kind of a child. And I'm pretty sure I was a fantasy fan back then too. I mean, I was watching cartoons on Saturday morning TV like He-Man Masters of the Universe. There was a Conan animated series. The Marvel Conans back then too. Were available. And yes, there was something called heavy metal, even though I learned about this because of Satanic Panic reality shows on TV. And of course, like many in my generation, I was introduced to fantasy gaming through a tabletop game called HeroQuest. And you know, some of you may say, "Oh, what the fuck? It was '90s. Where the hell there was no Lord of the Rings there everywhere and stuff." Let me remind you that I grew up in Greece, so back then there was not a fantasy scene over here. Believe it or not, despite the Greek mythology and all of that. Yes, there was mythology. Mythology was very popular, but not what was the UK, US, the Anglo-Saxon fantasy fiction we're all familiar with. So back then, I went to Athens because I didn't grow up in Athens. I grew up in a very small town, Greece, in the 90s. Yes, it's getting quite dramatic already, I know. And I went to Athens, and my big sister took me to a big, big bookstore. We went to the children's fiction section, and I just saw three of the most amazing books ever. There were three volumes, it was three books, they were white. They all wrote Lord of the Rings, and they also had subtitles. I mean, it was awesome. It was something about a ring. There was something called The Two Towers, The Return of the King. I was, it blew up my mind. Really. I was looking at the bookshelf and just had so many, 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 many ideas about it was there. So many possibilities. I mean, I get why so many people in the 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s and zeros and up to now write bad or not so bad The Lord of the Rings rip-offs. And this is because they try to grasp the potential it was when they saw those covers back then. I mean, inside my head, I could hear a foreign, known, Sunday music. And, the zeros I learned was called Blind Guardian. It might have been this cover. I mean, it was the 90s, Satanic Panic was a thing. And yes, here there was Satanic Panic back then. And I can see why I was not got this book. I mean, after all, Tolkien was something unknown at that time. Here, there were some very different ideas of what it was appropriate for children. I'm early childhood. I was given books. I loved Jules Verne's books, of course, because they were a little sci-fi, and I had this sci-fi experience, of course. I love to read stuff about the Greek mythology, the slaughtering of thousands, of hundreds of thousands in the Iliad was appropriate, and a Cyclops eating Ulysses' companions, or a witch turning them into pigs. That was child appropriate. Lord of the Rings was not. And of course, I was given a lot of middle grade or young adult fiction books about wars, about immigration, about being a refugee. So, yes, there was enough grief porn for children to read. A couple of years later, I went to local children's library. Thanks to this library, I have gotten to read some interesting stuff. I read a lot of Asterix and Tintin comics. Alfred Hitchcock presents The Three Investigators, which was a kind of mystery horror. There was a hint of horror in some of those books. So I went to the library. I found a book by this J.R. Tolkien guy. Found it myself, got it, and tried very, very hard not to scream in triumph. Instead, I remained silent. I just opened the book and started reading. And it was a book that I wanted to read for years. I mean, just seeing the cover, awesome. I had to read this. And that book was called The Silmarillion. Years and years after that, I had a fascination and tracked down and read some H.P. Lovecraft's novels, reading there about, this very corny trope of Lovecraft, where we have this character who stumbles upon an incomprehensible tome, cosmic horror. It always got me. It's dumb. At this point, it's a trope that we laugh about, but it always got me. And I was wondering why it was so effective for me. As I was scripting this video, it finally dawned on me that feeling of cracking open an incomprehensible tome and living the horror of names, it's about. Like I felt this that day I cracked open the Silmarillion because, okay, I saw the book, I was blown away. I love the cover. This is the Greek cover of the Silmarillion. And I thought, wow, there's a guy with a sword and Poseidon, because I didn't know it was Tolkien ripping off the mythology back then. We had no internet. I couldn't know what this Tolkien guy was doing in his books. Yeah, it's epic as fuck. So I started reading. There was something in the first page about Iluvatar and listening to musics, and he created the world. And basically, Iluvatar is an Azathoth ripoff. Thank you, Jared Tolkien, for making me love Lovecraft. And I was a limited time, and I was I don't know 12, 13 at this point. So it was very simple. I saw sword, I wanted sword. So I did a sin. Every bibliophile will probably feel outraged about, and I skipped some pages. And I got to a text, a piece of text that talked about a river where it sprang from and through which places it go and all that stuff. Then there was something about forests. It was like, okay, I've done the first scene for a bibliophile, so I'll go all the way and burn in book-loving hell. So I skip to the end. So what the fuck? There will be some sword fighting in the end, right? Every good book ends in sword fighting, or it's not a good book. Okay, the Bible is the good book, but doesn't end in sword fighting. It ends with apocalyptic battles between angels and demons. And that was a hubris I paid for. It was a moment I had to start this book, horror, recall back and myself. And I went out of the library, and my life was never the same. I was haunted by horrors I've never considered. There are certain things the human mind, the unconditioned human mind, should never, ever, ever encounter. The dark pages with the comprehensible horrors that should remain forever sealed. I was not ready. I was not ready for that because I just went to the end of Silmarillion and I saw indices. I don't think I can back up the Silmarillion again and see all those things. I was traumatized. It took me 10 or something years after that to read fantasy. It took me even more to read The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. And reading those books, those four books, made me appreciate Tolkien more and more. But part of me still hates the guy. Yes, you can press the dislike button and comment about what a good person I am, or like the professor. But hear me out. I hate this guy because fantasy fiction is awesome. But his book, I cracked open in in pure folly of my youth, made me believe that fantasy fiction was boring. Boring books, overlong books with weird names that are rip-offs from mythologies we all know and love, and they make the New Testament read like a Dan Brown novel. Well, that's pretty much what fantasy is, a part of it at least. And what changed my mind? It was another guy called Peter Jackson who has directed some amazingly awesome movies like Braindead and Heavenly Creatures, and this Lord of the Rings trilogy, of course. So when in Christmas 2001 I went to the movies because I had moved to Athens at this point in my life. I had met some super geeky people, and they told me, "Oh, the Lord of the Rings is coming out. You should go and saw them." Stupid, and I didn't know better. So we went to the premiere of Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, or similar. Actually, I went to a screening that was full of geeks, and it was the whole room was silent for the entirety of the movie. I won't believe it was like early Jewish experience. And come to think of it, that there were so few fantasy movies back then. I mean, Harry Potter was barely a thing at this point. I think the Harry Potter mania was starting at this point. But yes, fantasy was the pro cousin of sci-fi. And I went to Lord of the Rings a few days before Christmas, and it was like Santa Claus brought me a present. He owed me this present since I was a boy, a 10-year-old boy. I mean, I don't know if you've read Hogfather from Terry Pratchett. I've reviewed this book, and it was like, the finishing scene with the horse. You know what I say? The one that would probably remember right now for the book and will make you cry. That scene, yes. It was like that. Now, wipe the tears away. I know it's hard, but do it. Just do it, okay? Just do it for me. Don't cry. Stay with me. It's going to finish in a while. Don't cry, please. Don't cry. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go and look further. And there were some purists that knew better than me, and they've read the Silmarillion after Lord of the Rings, and they loved Tolkien, and they were like, "Where is Tom Bombadil, you hack?" They were right in a way, but what Peter Jackson did is he took classic book that changed literature forever. Because Tolkien was the first to create a huge world and use his novels to be the world and all this stuff. Titan. And me even saying the words, I kind of hated the guy, was blasphemy. I know that. Believe me. Um, he took a kernel of the magical of the rings and he gave it as a real fan to scrubs like me. And I thank him for that. Honestly, because it's very hard to put the entirety of Lord of the Rings into a movie, and he just chose the parts that people want to see. I guess people who didn't know see, and then if they like, they will read the book like I did. And you know, he's a hero because the Lord of the Rings movies, along with the Harry Potter novels and then movies, made geek culture, well, this today mainstream. I mean, I've lived the dark ages where we were just some gamers that were aware of Dungeons and Dragons and Lord of the Rings and all this stuff. And when I say mainstream, my mother has no clue about all this fun and stuff because they were not part of her childhood, of her age. And she gave me a call. Yes, I know. Old people still give calls to other people. Shocking, yes. And a couple of, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, and said, "Oh, there is a movie you like in on TV. It's this Lord of the Rings stuff." And also these super geeks people I knew, they well, they didn't convince me. Actually, I convinced myself to go and play D&D with them, and the rest is history, I guess. And I know it's all built talk. I won't talk about the ancient times of early 2000, 20 years ago. And I mean, Lord of the Rings didn't make me a fan of fantasy. I had some early experiences that were mixed bags, and I've read Tolkien after I went and read. Actually, I loved Eric Salvatore novels and the Elric stories from Michael Moorcock back then. Also, a guy called J.R. Martin. People were telling me well, he was the Sith, and he had this Game of Thrones book. You might have heard of that. I don't know. And then I read Tolkien, so it was kind of weird to read this stuff. And I know some of you hardcore Tolkien fans may be pissed, but I did this speech in front of group of hardcore Tolkien fans. They were laughing, so I hope you laughed and you understand that my I hate Tolkien. It's a bit of a stretch, and if you feel outraged by that, I'm very sorry about that. But that was my experience. But I'll tell you one thing, and nothing. You ever see a 12-year-old boy or girl crack open a submarine book in front of you? You just rush ahead, take the book out of his or her hands, and just give them to read a bit. I hope you liked this little story of mine. Um, Love to hear your comments about how you read your first fantasy novel or how you were introduced to J.R. Tolkien and other fantasy authors. Um, so leave a comment. If you found this video entertaining, press the like button. If you didn't find it entertaining, I mean, you've already left the video, so say. Thank you for watching and subscribe for more geeky stuff. Fun.